If you want your revolution to succeed, look to your ancestors. Marxism and European anarchism are often treated as original political theories, but in reality, they borrow heavily from indigenous and non-Western social structures. Concepts like communal land, mutual aid, anti-hierarchy or dialectical and historical materialism weren't invented by Marx, Engels or Bakunin. These systems already existed and endured in indigenous societies across the world. The key difference is that those indigenous societies weren't just built on political structure. They were held together by culture, by relational systems, intergenerational obligations, protocols, stories, and deeply embedded values. That's what made them resilient over long periods of time, even under immense pressure. Marxism and European anarchism, in contrast, attempt to reconstruct these ideas in theory, but without the cultural foundations that sustained them. These European ideologies emerged in societies already disconnected from land, kinship, and traditional knowledge. They try to rebuild community through politics alone, without the deeper relational systems that keep people connected and accountable beyond ideology. This is one reason why leftist movements frequently fracture and fail. Without shared cultural ground, without protocols, shared story, or spiritual connection, conflict becomes personal, power struggles emerge, and internal cohesion breaks down. Theory alone can't hold a group together. Movements like the CNTFAI, the Machnovists, the USSR, or Maoist China did exist within broader cultural contexts, and often drew strength from those surrounding traditions. But that's not the same as Marxism or European anarchism being culturally rooted. The political theory sat on top of those cultures. It wasn't born from them. And when conditions changed, or pressure mounted, the political system often couldn't hold. Some will argue that Marxism and European anarchism failed because of constant attack from capitalist powers. That's partly true, but indigenous societies have also been under violent, prolonged assault by colonial capitalism, with even worse treatment, and many of us still survive, still around. Not because we're politically superior, but because our social systems are rooted in something deeper than theory. Culture carries us. Culture is infrastructure. It teaches accountability, obligation, humility, and care. It ties people to each other and to the land. When political systems lack that, they are unstable. They rely on constant effort, enforcement, and ideological unity to function, which rarely lasts. What Marxism and European anarchism needs, it left behind. And rather than seriously engaging with living indigenous societies who still embodied the communal values Marx idealized, Marx dismissed them as primitive and placed them at the start of a proposed historical ladder. So, Marxism ends up reaching for a kind of society it doesn't know how to create, because it cuts itself off from the people who still had it. It wants the structure of indigenous life without the culture that made it work. That's the paradox. Marxism needs what it ignores. It claims to be scientific and universal, but it actually depends on a kind of cultural cohesion that is neither included in its theory nor reproducible by politics alone. European anarchism followed a similar path. Thinkers like Proudhon and Bakunin developed powerful critiques of state power and capitalism, but they were also working in a cultural vacuum. The societies they came from had already lost many of the communal, land-based kinship systems that once supported mutual aid and collective responsibility. Their anarchism tried to reconstruct those values through theory, but without the deep cultural practices that made them functional in the first place. Like Marxism, it became a framework without a foundation, strong on ideas, but weak on the relational infrastructure that holds people together across generations.